All right, welcome to another episode of Line Heat. I'm here with Chef Chris Frothingham, and we're broadcasting live from Great Road Kitchen in Littleton, Mass. So I just wanted to introduce you. Basically, you're the executive chef and partner here at Great Road Kitchen and also at the
Groton Public House
in Groton, Mass.
Correct.
So you're busy.
I'm busy.
We'd love to start off with your story and just tell people about how you got here, because it's an interesting path, actually, starting off with basically an environmental degree at Hobart, right, to now running two kitchens and the staff that go along with it.
That's right. Definitely didn't plan this trip. Brief. Early on in my life, born in London, or actually born in Mexico. I'm sorry. Lived in London when I was very little. Moved to the U.S. When I was in second grade. And right through high school, straight on to college. Had never worked in a kitchen that whole time, and studied environmental economics with a specialty in Latin American markets, and came out of college and had no idea what that was going to do for me, but I had a good business background. And to blow off some steam, some friends and I headed up to Mount Hood in Oregon to go be ski bums for the year, and I could get a job in the kitchen being a dishwasher. So, I think my dad wanted to disown me at that point with a college degree and washing dishes for about $4 an hour, but we skied all winter, and walking in the kitchen, I just fell in love with it. Was blown away with the what seemed to be chaos to me at the time, and 20-something years later, still seems like chaos, but there's a little more organization and rhyme and reason to the way it works, but I fell in love with how it all worked. And I really stayed in cooking for a few years, and eventually went to culinary school up in Vermont, to New England Culinary Institute. Came back to Boston and cooked for Todd English for a number of years, and traveled around the world with him, saw some amazing things, amazing places, and fast forward, moved out to the burbs and opened a restaurant up out here.
That's all.
That's it. Just like that. 20-something years, and you can do it too.
That's great. No, that's a good message. Yeah, we have a lot of line cooks, sous chefs, and restaurant owners or aspiring restaurant owners that watch. So there's a lot of learning, I'm sure, that you went through. A lot of heartache and pain, and
to this day, when you think, I think ignorance is bliss. I remember starting off in the kitchen and being like, oh, it's just food. It's easy. I see these people doing that, and then I realized that everything had a name. All the mise en place and mirepoix, and there's technique to braising and roasting correctly, and charcuterie and butchering, and it was one of those things. The more you learn about it, the more you realize you don't know, and that's when the anxiety sort of sets in. But today, that's what I chase, because every day, again, 20-something years later, I still have a ton to learn, and I have always said that when I think I know it all, it's time to hang up the chef coat and find something else to do, because you're burnt out at that point.
So you started off in finance, though. Like, how quickly did you figure out that wasn't for you, and the stove basically called you back in and said, look, this is where you belong?
I think I was in the banks for about a year. So
okay.
After cooking for about 2 years, I went to Boston, and the $8 an hour living in the city, and then watching my friends, going on trips and whatnot, and having holidays off. I thought maybe I should give that a try. So I did that. I worked 37 hours a week, got a nice salary. I was miserable. I didn't know that kitchens were where I wanted to be, but I knew that I didn't want to be behind a desk. And at that point, that's when I did go to culinary school, and haven't looked back since.
So you went to culinary school, and then after that, you're able to hook up with Todd English, and over your career, essentially help him break into the Boston market or expand his operations.
Well, he was already in the Boston market. He had figs in Charlestown. He had olives in Charlestown, which was what really put him on the map. I joined with him in the end of 1999 to open up what was Bonfire, and I came in as a line cook at the time and worked my way up, and after a few years worked my way up to sous chef, and then finally to executive chef, and then moved over to Faneuil Hall, Kingfish Hall, which was another great restaurant that he had. And it's there that we really got the opportunity to travel. We went to Thailand, we did a lot of events in California, got to cook for a lot of celebrities, local athletes, a lot of Red Sox, which was just amazing experience, and really opened my eye to the world of restaurants.
So, and Bonfire had like a Latin theme to it.
It did. It was built as sort of an Argentinian style steakhouse.
Okay.
And again, Todd's play on that. So tons of butchery and dry aged meats, tacos, lobster tacos, fresh guac. Big flavors and big steaks.
So how did you make that transition from Bonfire then over to Kingfish Hall? And what was that conversation?
There was opportunity between the restaurants. If you work hard, I was taught from an early age, some of my mentors in the restaurant industry, to always do the job of the person ahead of you. And so when I was a line cook, I looked at what the tournant was doing. And when the opportunity came up, I was the natural choice at that point because I was already doing the job of the tournant. And as soon as I was in the tournant position, I started looking at what the sous chef was doing. And again, when that sous chef position opened up, it was a natural fit, so on and so forth, and working your way up the line because you never know when that opportunity is going to happen. And you don't want to wait for it to happen and then start doing the job. You have to do it way before that happens. So Kingfish, they saw that I was able to run Bonfire successfully, and Kingfish there was some movement within the company. A position opened up in there, and it was just another experience within Todd's company to experience a different style of his restaurant, go from the steakhouse to the seafood. And being in Boston, I thought that would be an amazing opportunity to be able to be on the waterfront and cooking some of the best seafood and have access to incredible products.
That's great. And so some kitchens, let's talk about your kitchen actually, because some kitchens actually promote moving up. Some kitchens allow for a lot of mentorship, and others out there are basically nightmares to work for, right? So,
oh yeah.
I'm sure you've worked for all kinds of different.
I've been in all those kitchens.
Yeah. So what's that like? How do you find a good home for yourself as a chef or an aspiring cook, even just looking to work up the ladder?
Well, I think the first thing is you shouldn't be too anxious to get to the top of the ladder. Your time will come. You have to spend as much time lower on the lower rungs, learning what holds the ladder up. Really learning technique, learning how to operate a kitchen, focusing on food really is the primary thing. Because if you can't cook, then you're not going anywhere. Beyond that, the experience really, you can take something out of anywhere you go. I've never worked at McDonald's, but I'm sure I've always said I could go to McDonald's for 6 months and probably learn a ton. They're obviously successful, and they're successful for a reason. Yes, there's marketing dollars, but there's consistency, and so consistency in a restaurant is huge. That's the reason people come back to a brand or to a single style restaurant, is because they expect it to be a certain level, and it has to be consistent. And so even in the jobs where you're not happy, you think you might be able to cook better than the chef, or you have people above you telling you how to do things that really don't know what they're doing. You should really take a bite of humble pie and learn how to do it their way. Because when it's your turn, you might work for 10 different chefs, you learn 10 different ways to operate, and then you can choose what works best for you. It doesn't mean there's an exact right way or wrong way, but you can choose how to manage, how to treat people. You never forget from where you came, and taking care of the people that you were 20 years ago. And I think that goes into building a solid team.
Sure.
is really treating people as individuals, trying to teach them as much as they can. You know, I have very few rules when you come into the kitchen. One is that you have to have passion and desire, and you have to be punctual. I can't teach you any of those things. If you don't have those, you're not going to be successful in my kitchens.
So that's an interesting thing about humility, because there's also pride in cooking too, right?
Sure,
so there's
sure.
got to be a balance on just how to, there may not be a one right balance for
Right.
maybe it's individual, based on the individual. But how do you look at that in terms of having pride in your cooking and also saying, but I'm going to learn how you do it here?
Well, again, as you're going through it and as you're learning, you're there hopefully to learn what you can from the chefs around you and from the team around you. You know, nobody knows how to do it all. Everything's been done to a certain degree before. We're not really inventing new foods. We revisit the way we plate, as far as plating in towers or little dots or smears or swooshes, using different chemicals to cook. But at the end of the day, the fundamentals are all the same. And so just really learning what you can from each person through the ranks, and just being a sponge, take a ton of notes. I have hundreds of pages of notes that I've typed up over the years and put into binders, and I, as a cook, didn't really have to refer to those very often because I was very much in the trenches every day. Now in the position of managing 2 restaurants, I'm still very hands-on. I do butchery all morning and make pastas, soups, sauces, veal stocks, all that good stuff. But I'm a little rusty if I'm be put on the line, honestly, but it's a different angle of the business. So now I have those notes that I can look back when I do charcuterie or pate or do some curing or confit. I can always refer back to those notes to recipes that I know are tried and true, that if I hadn't written down, I'd be guessing at it and wasting my time, and again, not being consistent.
Let's talk about your food. I mean, the food here is phenomenal. I've eaten here several times and love it. Haven't been to the public house yet. Got to go there. But tell me, how did this come about as a concept, and then what led to opening up a second location?
So my business partner, Marcus Palmer, was familiar with the area out here in Littleton and Groton. He and I both spent most of our careers cooking in the city and around Boston and other cities, and this is ultimately home. I live out here in Groton on an old farm. Marcus also lives out this way, and we both found that there was a desire, or there was the education, and there is the demand for great food. And honestly, driving into the city has gotten very expensive. Parking is tough, traffic, construction.
Sure.
So we said, why don't we bring what we know and create that same sort of vibe without necessarily the price tag. So again, still cooking the same great quality ingredients, using the same vendors that we used in the city, but you can pull right up to the front door and park. And it just makes it a lot easier, and we're bringing that experience out here, so you don't have to drive in. And it's service focused. Our mantra is really take care of people here as if you were throwing a dinner party at your house. Just make sure people are comfortable. Do they have a drink? Are they hungry? Do they want more to eat? Do they need less to eat? Is it too loud? And really just looking at all those subtleties, the food really becomes just a small piece of that experience.
So this business, I mean, you're not only the chef and the partner, but you have investors here too, right? Like that's a whole, I guess, level of learning that get on the line, right?
Yeah,
like how did that come about? And also, I'm thinking opening up a restaurant here may seem like a risk to some people, more so than other restaurants, right? Where there's a ton of foot traffic. So.
Opening a restaurant is a risk anytime you do it.
Okay.
I've been involved in multiple openings, and you can look at the demographics, you can look at the paperwork, and you do all the studies, you do the homework, and you can spend years extrapolating data and how many cars are passing through the intersection, how many different restaurants are within a 5-mile radius, what the price point is. You can survey the people and they can tell you they're looking for a wood-fired pizza shop. And so you could spend 2 years doing this research, you could open up the pizza shop, and you might be closed in a year. And the factors are people didn't really want a pizza shop, or maybe there's a better one down the street that opened in the meantime that you're doing the research or the study, or you just don't have a consistent product. On the flip side, you could open it not being sure that it's going to work, and it's a huge success. So there's a little bit of luck involved in it, but at the end of the day, if you can't manage your numbers, because at the end of the day it's a business, if you can't manage your labor costs and your food cost, and again going back to a consistent product,
sure.
And then provide what the people want. So if money was no issue, the restaurant concept I'd be involved in probably would look a little bit different. It would be more about what I want to do and playing with the flavors and the type of food that I'm more interested in. But out here, we have to be able to accommodate the family, so you can get homemade pasta. The kids can have a great meal with different veggies and fries and salads and pizzas and burgers and all that. The adults can go from one of our burgers to our steaks to we have vegan options, vegetarian options. We're able to sort of mold the menu, but we have a little bit of something for everyone on the menu. And then on top of that, we change probably a third of the menu quarterly with the seasons. So again, the successful model has really just been trying to accommodate a whole family and not just one type of dining experience that people are looking for.
So you have a fine dining experience, and yet it's casual, approachable for many different groups of people here?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm weary of the fine dining. I don't think there's really anything fine dining about what we do.
Okay.
We like to, again, treat people as if they were guests at your house. So, the doorbell rings. Are you going to let them stand out there even if you're not ready to serve them dinner? Let's say your oven didn't turn on, or you flipped a breaker, or you didn't have the right ingredients and you got started late and you told them to show up at 6. You're not going to let them wait outside. You're going to invite them in. You're going to offer them a drink. You're going to make sure they're comfortable. You're going to go back in the kitchen and keep cooking and keep checking on them, and you're going to tell them what's going on. And so that's what we really try to do here is set an expectation, and it really is a dining experience. I think a lot of restaurants these days have just become really an outside addition to a lot of people's houses that don't have time to cook or don't want to cook or know how to cook or whatever the reason may be. And I think what we forget about a lot of the times is that it really is an experience. It's really the environment you're in and feeling comfortable and knowing that the food's going to be great, but having conversation with your server, or if you want to talk with a business client, not being bothered, but still have the water glasses being full and not waiting for an order or whatever it may be. So again, it's just being very in tune to the individual and what their needs are, sort of reading their cues and staying on top of that.
So let's talk about sourcing the ingredients here too, because there's a combination of you actually bring in ingredients from your farm.
I do.
And then you source local ingredients
Yep.
as well, right?
So again, I love the idea of farm to table. I would never bill us as a full farm to table restaurant. We, after all, live in New England,
Right.
and I'm not sure my guests want to eat parsnips and potatoes out of the root cellar and cabbage all year long. That said, we work with Springdale Farm primarily right down the street, about a mile away from here. We buy beef from Springdale. We also buy vegetables, and Jamie is very generous and gets us a lot of sort of whatever her bumper crop is that year. And in the fall right now, for example, we're pickling a ton of different things. We're making hot sauces out of peppers that she had, tomatoes that weren't quite, I guess, beautiful to sell in the market.
Sure.
We'll concasse and cook those and turn them into sauce and soup, and we'll sell those through the front of the restaurant and or use them throughout the winter on the menu. So when we can, corn and tomatoes and the local beef, whatever else she's pulling out of the ground, we'll use that. Again, I have chickens that I raise organically at our farm, and I'll bring those eggs in and sell those eggs and use those in some dishes. But by all means, we can't sustain on just being 100% local.
Sure.
For the number of covers and reservations that we do. But we do also source from fish purveyors, and our produce companies will go everywhere through the Hudson Valley and all the farms in that area, highlighting what's available when it's available, and we'll certainly source as much of that as possible throughout the year.
So you have a variety of high-end product. You're a lot of techniques, a lot going on in this kitchen. You've got a raw bar. You've got an awesome food and beverage program going on here. There's a lot of skill and knowledge required to run this operation as well. How do you find good people?
I'll let you know when I do.
Okay.
Again, it goes back to me when I interview.
Yeah.
It's almost somebody with less experience, but they have to have those keys that I talked about before, which are you have to have the desire. It's nothing like the Food Network. So if you think it is, go get a job at the Food Network. Not that there's anything wrong with the Food Network. It's just not the reality of what day-to-day life in the kitchen is. You have to have punctuality. You have to be an organized person. If you have those things, I'll teach you the rest. Probably half my line at some point or another was either a dishwasher before or started as a dishwasher for us. And as they showed that they could work through the dish pit and not complain, show up on time, take pride in cleaning the dish pit and owning the area, we would bring them into garde manger, and they'd start cleaning lettuce, and they'd learn how to make vinaigrettes. And if they found that they got excited about that and they were doing well with that, they've moved right up the line. And some of the guys are some of my best cooks now. Started in the dish pit 5 years ago at my previous restaurant, and have followed me here. And it's amazing to watch them grow. And so that way, it's great. Again, I'll never ask you to do something without teaching you the technique behind it or why I choose to do it that way. And again, it's not the only way to do it. But after working for a lot of great chefs and reading a lot and watching a lot of videos, working in different kitchens, I've decided certain techniques work well for the application that we have here, and I try and pass that knowledge on to the guys in this kitchen.
Are there any other, so you referenced great chefs, are there any chefs particularly that have a major influence on your style of cooking and what you bring here?
Well, again, Todd English had a huge influence
Sure.
just for the amount of time I worked with him. Was lucky enough when I was working with Todd to do a lot of different dinner parties and rub elbows with a lot of great chefs. I remember growing up watching Julia Child and Jacques Pepin, and I had the chance later in life, early in my culinary career, to meet and cook for both of those people. And to me, that was one of the highlights. Jacques Pepin asked me if I knew how to make the perfect scrambled egg, and of course I started chewing on that humble pie, and I said absolutely not. And he walked me through a technique of using a double boiler, and the eggs were just they were fluffy and moist, finished with a little bit of shaved white truffle. He ruined me, and some fresh chives. He ruined me for that. And Julia Child, again, just her style of cooking, I'd say it's a lot like Todd English, just big, bold flavors and a lot of love going into the dishes. So.
And so, just to wrap up, for someone who hasn't dined with you yet, how would you describe your flavor profiles, or what you bring to the plate? What would they expect walking in the door here overall?
Well, again, I think you're going to be able to find something on the menu that you like, whether it be raw bar. We have oysters that we work with, Island Creek Oysters. Came to us and asked if we wanted to sell their oysters, and I jumped on that opportunity. Just have access to some of the best oysters on the East Coast. We rotate 5 different oysters every day that we bring in several times a week. And we go through them, so it's just, they're packed on ice, and you get them nice and ice cold and fresh. And we have a little description about the varieties. If that's not your cup of tea, we have everything from beef carpaccio to tuna tamaki. We have a few different tacos on the menu. We have lots of salads that can be entrees. We bring in a special catch of the day every day, whether it be longline local halibut or cod. There's a little something on the menu for everyone. I think we've been able to adapt and tweak enough of the dishes to appease most gluten allergies. Certainly let us know if you come in. Everything is made from scratch, and so we know every ingredient in every single dish, and a lot of those we can modify to meet your needs.
That's awesome. Great. Well, I appreciate your time. I definitely recommend anybody that has the opportunity to come in here, please do so. I mean, the food's phenomenal. The service is also wonderful. The atmosphere is tremendous. It's definitely one of the larger and I think more impressive places in the area. So you've done a great job, and congratulations on it. Congratulations on your success.
I appreciate it.
All right.
Best of luck, everyone.
Yeah, take care. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.